What's up, guys? I'm Nick Schiffer. Welcome back to another episode of Site Visit. We're starting a day here in Cambridge, and if you checked out last week's Revealed episode with Ken, he showed you this 18-foot cabinet run he was working on in the shop. Well, I'm actually standing up in that office space, and this right here is that wall that will have that cabinet run. So if you guys remember, there's a bunch of cubbies with upper drawers on the top edge. Down at that end, we have a floating bench. You can actually see our steel brackets. You guys always ask what we use for steel brackets. Oftentimes, unless we're custom fabricating them with one of our fabricators, we're typically ordering them from center line brackets. So that's a quick little shout out to them, but you can see the steel brackets sticking out of the wall. Those have been mounted to the stud. Those will help support our floating desk. This right here is that 18-foot run, and on top, and I think you'll probably catch this in maybe this week's episode of Revealed, is we're building a tray for the very top of these cabinets to house a sheet metal pan, which will allow him to put plants on top and actually capture any of the moisture. Something we're kind of trying to make sure that we're thinking about the way this is used in the end, and we're gonna have our sheet metal shop down the street from our shop fabricate something to capture that. I want to call attention to a couple things. You see these plywood boxes on the floor here, obviously not to support the compressor long term, just temporarily, but those are actually protecting the sheet metal duct work that is feeding the den area. So if we walk down the stairs here and take a look back, you can actually see our registers facing out. So what we've done is we've really carefully coordinated with framing as well as our millwork shop and our HVAC contractor to make sure that that duct work comes out where it needs to, but then our cabinetry toe kick actually hides that, so we're not dealing with awkward soffits or awkward buildups within cabinetry. Everything is tucked underneath that toe kick. I also wanted to talk about this. We have this small little area of storage underneath our staircase. And what we have here is an MDF door. You can kind of see our combo core. We talk about combo core a lot. Combo core for us is a plywood middle section with MDF face on either side. It's really great for paint grade. What we have going on here, mind you, two of these hinges are not connected. We ran out of plates, so we'll come back to that. But what we have here is a hidden door, and this is the whole side of this staircase is all plastered. So this will get completely finished in plaster, and this right here will get painted to match the plaster with a nice 3/32 to 1/8 inch gap all the way around. And right now this door is slightly proud of this frame, and that's because we'll use our aluminum stop bead. I don't think we have any kicking around here. I could have prepped for that, but I didn't. Similar to our bookcase over there, this right here will get an aluminum stop bead, epoxy to the edge of our combo core, and then the flange will go over on top of the plaster, and we'll use that aluminum, we'll use that stop bead edge to then screed our plaster in every direction to make sure it's flat, and then we can adjust this door in and out to make sure that we're co-planar all the way around. And then at the very end, we'll probably do some sort of push latch, so this will bump open, and then we have additional storage, and we've also tucked in our radiant manifold in here. So this was actually something that, you know, a little bit behind the scenes, was probably an oversight on our part. We kind of got to the point of, hey, what are we doing there for the hidden door? And we wanted to approach this. You guys have seen us use the steel plastered in jambs. Very similar detail here, but we've actually made this with plywood and epoxying that flange. I'm gonna show you that flange again. I know Mike walked through it with you at on his site visit. You can kind of see what we got going on. This is an aluminum profile that we actually cut the leg off, and then we epoxy this to our combo core. So this right here is combo core, aluminum, and this will get plastered. And again, just to remind you, this will all get plastered right to this aluminum edge. This will get painted the same as the wall color. You'll never see these two materials. There's no seam between that. This is completely sanded flush. There's no seam, everything's epoxied, so when that's all painted, it actually all looks the same material, but it gives us this nice cabinet structure box, which will work really well with our shelving system, which I can't walk through this week's Revealed. I'm looking at Doug. Last week's Revealed with that multi-ply setup. And then I know James is working on it this week and getting everything ready and prepped for finish. So when we're all said and done, this can be painted, and then all our shelving can actually be slipped in after the fact. But that's that detail we'll use over there. It's something that we've recently developed. We actually got the idea from the guys over at Fine Line, And they were nice enough to share it with us, and we've been kind of using it ever since, which has been really great because it's resolved a lot of these issues that we've ran into where we're trying to have flush doors. I think about a project that we did just maybe a year or two ago where we built a medicine cabinet. There's actually a video on YouTube about it, how we made that flush with the plaster, and it was just, it worked, but it wasn't the best result. And I think back to our Back Bay project when I actually ripped those cabinets out because it was the same approach. And again, something I always stress is the easiest solution isn't always the best solution. We want to make sure that we're considering everything at the table and making sure that we are producing at the very highest level and getting the best result, not the easiest result. I also want to talk about the staircase over here. You good? So yesterday they had done this large wall, and this is a big millwork wall. We have millwork all the way from the left down to the right, and then we have our kitchen cabinetry in that wall, which they're prepping right now. You can see all the red tape and the mesh tape. They made this creation. I don't even know how they're gonna fit this in their van when they leave. They're gonna have to unscrew this thing. For a millwork guy installing cabinetry, that's gonna be awfully nice. Mike, I think we might be able to reduce our shim budget for the year. What do you think? See, I hear cedar's up. So it's really important that, there's a number of reasons why this is important. Obviously, millwork, it makes their job a lot easier. You're working off a nice straight base, but also we have multiple skylights above. They did that wall last week. They did this wall yesterday. They're working on this wall. Behind here, they've also done this wall this week with the staircase. And, this was really important. They've actually used our steel stringer. They've removed all our temporary treads and used this as a reference. Now, there's some discrepancy in steel. There's always some bowing, especially when you weld it and you heat it up. But they basically took the average of that and then took that and made sure that this wall was completely parallel with the stringer. So when we're putting our treads in, we're not scribing the wall side every single way all the way up. This is a nice straight wall. And then you've seen this detail before where we leave out these small sections around, small devices that have to be plastered in. This way they can come back and adjust this. And you're gonna want this face of plastic to be dead flat with our plaster. You can make those micro adjustments. You can fill that in with epoxy behind, and then this will get compounded in so you have a nice, perfectly flat finish. The other side of that is these can be removed and you can actually straight edge this wall. We did this similar over at Back Bay where we took out the handrail brackets, they straight edged the wall, and then the handrail brackets went in after the fact. So this is key. We're looking at these big key walls and making sure that we are getting them super flat. It's just really important to us for, like I said, the aesthetics, but also from installing any of our work, such as a staircase or millwork. Similar to these lights, you can actually, Doug, if you turn the camera up here, they've left off around the beam. And the beam is going to be done the same way as they were able to straight edge kind of around that, leaving out. You can see the discrepancy of plaster, up there, you're probably 5/16 or so. They'll come back and they'll actually stop bead around all of that steel and then fill that in and use this as a reference to straight edge all the way around. So we are coming back to fill those in, but it nets us a better result because we're not trying to straight edge and work around these steel plasters. So a tip for you guys, if you are trying to get super flat walls, focus on what you can straight edge. Focus on these big straight sections, and then these small devices that you might have to work around, come back to those, patch those in with another material, and that way you're able to reference things after the fact off of an already flat surface. We actually sat down with the team over at Hutker Architects to talk about our Milton project, a really incredible contemporary home that we're going to be building for a special family, and we actually captured some of that meeting. What I'm saying is we would likely buy, the veneer in the say 16-inch thicknesses, and just roll it out and just basically make my own 1 3/4-inch door, and then throw it in the and you could I could probably I don't know how many I could stack up, 5 or 6 doors at a time if we're just gluing it and then put it in the bag, set it overnight, and you're able to cut it out.
Nick, I love working with you.
Yeah, this is great.
Seriously, we work with builders that say no all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, not that you're like all just saying yes, but like you're helping solve, come up with a solution. It's excellent.
I gotta execute though. That's
I know.
So over in Charlestown, this is a tight site. Actually, you can see what they've done is they've actually installed this LVL, and it's adhered to all of the framing of the existing building. You see these temporary braces coming down to the subfloor, and what that's going to do is actually help support that LVL and help support that second floor wall. If you look closely, there's actually, this house was built in the 1800s, and you see that big corner post, and then the mortise and tenon beam that gets tied into that corner post. That's an integral part of the framing of this existing house that's got to come out. Sitting on the deck here, we got a 16-inch LVL that's going to go up into that space, be supported by the corner post, and then support essentially the back half of this existing house. So once this beam is up in place, this wall goes away. We're gonna frame our exterior walls. We'll get our roof on. And before we put our metal roof on, the metal roof is actually gonna go on the very end of this project because we're gonna set staging on top of that roof, and we go up to the third floor where we're installing a dormer to add some additional living space on the third floor. Marvin rep on site just 2 days ago, and this back wall here, because it's such a tight site for many reasons, it's a tight home, the footprint's small, we're dealing with a tight backyard. We're going as far as to remove any swing door that we can. So the main entrance to the back of this house will actually be a pocket door, and that will be an exterior gray pocket door. Sounds a little weird, but if you think of a traditional slider, it's very similar to a slider, where that slider door just kind of slides in front of another glass panel, right? Well, imagine just kind of burying that extra glass panel in the wall. So we have to build this double wall cavity to allow that to happen. Now, it's not as simple as a regular slider. It's actually considered a multi-slide product, so it has a more high performance sill, and we're also talking about adding a screen package. Now, that's what I want to talk to Tim about, because that screen package actually adds 3 inches to our wall cavity. So, you know, all this room that we're going to be saving by not swinging a door inside, now we're fattening this wall cavity up a lot, more and more and more, and we have to really determine whether or not it's worth it or not.